We're going to record the podcast today, but even before I get started on the podcast, I want to talk to you about actually doing podcasts because at least me, I've got a lot of friends in my actual real life friend circles that say, I want to start a podcast. They've got something to say or something that they feel like they want to talk about. But then they go well, what are the episodes going to be about? What is it that I'm supposed to talk about while I'm on the show? Especially if I don't have any guests, because I don't have guests on my podcast, at least not yet. We're in episode 200, I think 16, and I haven't had a guest yet. That doesn't mean I don't want to. I just technically haven't figured out how to actually pull that off yet because, I don't feel like the Zoom thing really works. I want to do it a different way, and I haven't figured out how to technically pull it off yet. So no guests, 200 something episodes, and I just kind of go today's episode. If you're starting a podcast, recognize that I'm doing this with no notes. I have a general idea of what I want to talk about, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to try to link it up with a lesson and somehow circle all that around self-discipline and doing the things that you know you need to do. That's really all that's going to be going on down here. The episode might be 5 minutes, might be 12 minutes. I got no idea yet because this is just going to go free flow, which, by the way, is also a good way to start talking about things, whether you're talking into the camera or you're talking into the microphone, is to get yourself in a spot where you're just kind of flowing based off of a general idea of what you want to say. I learned that when I was a television news reporter right out of college, and the first time the red light came on in Chico, California, which is this tiny town in Northern California, for the NBC affiliate, the red light comes on and you're live, and I'm sitting there and I completely forgot what to say, even though on my little reporter pad, I had verbatim everything I was going to write, but I forgot the first word, so I just messed the entire thing up. Then by the time I got to Phoenix, which was only 9 months later, I got there pretty quick. I was really lucky. So by the time I got to Phoenix, I worked for ABC in Phoenix. I had 3 words on my reporter pad, and the red light comes on, and I'm like, oh, I got this. Because you can't mess it up when nobody doesn't know what you're going to say. See, that was the whole thing. If you don't know, if the crowd in the audience doesn't know what you're going to say, it's impossible for you to mess it up unless you feel like you know exactly what you should say and you forget the first word. So there's your little lesson on just start a fucking podcast. If that's what you want to do. And now let's record the actual podcast here of Everyday Discipline. Let me get my headphones dialed in the way that I like them. And I'm going to hit record on the special podcasting software, which, by the way, is really just QuickTime Player on Mac. Okay, but it sounds good because I talk through the good microphone. What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Everyday Discipline, where we decode, deconstruct, and reverse engineer self-discipline to get whatever you want in your life. My name is Brent Kokel. I'm your host, and I honestly believe that shit, by the way. I honestly believe that. Self-discipline is the number one skill that anybody can have in their life because it's the thing that allows you to actually do any other skill that you learn. For a long time, when I first got into marketing, internet marketing, there were all these different courses that I could take, and I kept on looking at them and was like, okay, I'll take this course, I'll take this course. This is how to build a funnel. This is how to do sales. This is how to do marketing. This is how to do video. This is how to do this, how to do that. And one of the things I recognized was I would execute the shit because, I have self-discipline. But a lot of people that were in the groups with me, you always get this private Facebook group, all the people in the group were like, oh, fuck, I'm not doing anything with the program. This is all great, but I just haven't done it yet. And this is a good example of how self-discipline is the number one skill that you must learn pretty much before you learn any other skill. And you might be sitting there going self-discipline ain't a skill, Brent. It's either something you're born with or born without. And my argument to you is not true. It's absolutely not true. Self-discipline is a learnable skill, and I know this because I've taught hundreds of people the skill of self-discipline. So that aside, knowing that I actually do believe that self-discipline is a skill and it's the number one skill that you can have in your life, let's kind of get on to the story that I want to talk to you guys about today and how that relates itself back to the topic that I talk about all the time, which is self-discipline, i.e. doing the shit you said that you were going to do. So my wife and I, in our backyard, we've got half an acre, which, by the way, I used to think that I wanted 2 acres of property, and then I started maintaining half an acre, and I'm like, yeah, this is enough. We don't need anything more than this, especially when it's all landscaped, because our half acre is all landscaped. Our house sits in the middle of this, and our backyard, we've got this kind of U-shaped house. So the backyard's got, picture a kind of a courtyard, then it opens up behind that. And we back up to this really cool kind of preserve which is it's got some like hiking trails on it, and then it's got this undividable land behind it. So it's awesome because we don't have another giant house looking down into our backyard. Like before we had kids, my wife and I would be naked in our backyard because nobody could see in it, which is exactly what we were thinking about when we both bought the house. We were going through there and we were looking at it, and the first thing we saw was the kitchen. We were like, okay, we're buying this place because of the kitchen. But then it was funny because we walked into the backyard and both of us kind of looked at each other and we knew exactly what the other one was thinking, which is like, we're going to be naked in this backyard. So you got the picture of the naked backyard. And now add kids to it, and there's no nudity in the backyard anymore, save for our 7-year-old son who decides not to wear pants pretty much most of the time. But in this backyard, there's all these trees, and we've got redwood trees, and we've got camphor trees, and we've got olive trees, and we've got a lot of Chinese maples. Now, one of the things that I never recognized when you move into a house that's at least got half an acre on it and a lot of landscape is you got to do a lot of work on the landscape beyond just mowing the lawn. Like there's a lot of shit that needs to go down in order to make it look good. And we wanted it to look good. Kind of like, remember Mr. Miyagi's backyard in the original Karate Kid? And people are looking at it going like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like that's what you want to create. You want to create that type of a vibe, though not necessarily like the Japanese vibe, but you want to create some awesome vibe inside of our backyard. And we've been failing. Like we've been failing hard. And this is because, well, we've got kids.